everybody, and welcome to Coffee with Jeannie and Cindy. I hope you have your coffee.
Hey, Cindy.
Hi, darling.
Hi,
Yeah.
honey.
I'm very excited about this topic that we're talking about today, Jeannie. And by the way, the reason we started Coffee with Jeannie and Cindy is because Jeannie and I have these amazing conversations. She's a wealth of information. She's just like a walking, talking culture encyclopedia. She just knows everything, and authors and books and all kinds of things. I just love when you talk your talk, Jeannie. You're just amazing. So today she was talking about a book that you're reading now, which is...
It's by Dr. Benjamin, Hardy. And it's a small book. It's called Be Your Future Self Now. Now and he actually cites in this book that there are just like all these references, like in TED Talks and other things, future self. So it's kind of a hot buzzword. But what he's talking about is what you and I have talked about before, like my experience with the guy that I worked with in the radio station, and he had his sonic boom. He wanted to change his life, from being a radio program director to being a real estate agent. We can talk about that in a minute. But what this guy is talking to, Ben Hardy, is that you can be your future self right now, but you have to know what that is. Now, you don't have to know how you get there. You don't have to know what it exactly looks like. But, we talked a couple of weeks ago about the fact that, attention goes, energy flows where attention goes, and what it is that we are looking at and thinking about and talking into existence. Dr. Joe Dispenza, in his work, and, so many people changed their lives significantly with his work because, he talks about how, neurons and thoughts that fire together, wire together. And if you're not firing those, they fall apart, which is a good thing. But he talks about walking away, Cindy, from our known past. We know what's gone on in our past, we know, and the predictable future. Well, because this went on in our past, this is what's likely to happen. That's the predictable future. So if I've been sick all of my life, or, had something, or, nobody helps me, or, whatever it is, that's what is. And then the predictable future is it's probably going to get worse and And what he says is, through his work, is choose what it is that you want to experience, because everything is in that gap of the unknown. You don't know what it is. So many times you and I have had discussions about what is our business? What do you want? The how is none of our business. We don't know. I plant a seed. I plant a tomato seed or a seedling or something like that. I know I want tomatoes, but I don't know how it works. I really don't. Why doesn't it grow up to be a redwood? Well, because it's a tomato seed. And so one of the things that he talks about is, and this is so interesting, because he talks about the fact that what we focus on, of course, we know this, becomes greater. And he starts out this book with this young high school YouTuber back in 2015. And he's doing all these YouTube things, and he's following like other big YouTube stars and looking at the gaming and, diving into this. And he ended up, because he has a lot of enthusiasm, but he ended up with about 8,000 subscribers, which is pretty good. But he said one day he was supposed to study. He was 17 years old. He was supposed to study for a history test. And he just got this idea. He said, I'm not going to study for the test. I'm going to make a video and really get real with my audience and connect with them. And so he set 3 goals. He set a 6-month goal, a 12-month goal, and a 5-year goal. And so he recorded, and it was like 2 minutes long. And it was like, I really hope I have 8,000 subscribers. I hope that, in 6 months that I can have 15,000 subscribers. And he set this whole thing up. He was just very real. And he set it to where it would automatically upload 6 months from the day. And then he did one 12 months. And, I'm hoping by that time in 12 months that I could have, whatever. And he surpassed all of these goals. Like in 6 months, he had 200,000 subscribers.
Oh my goodness.
And so he started doing things like kind of crazy things to introduce people to, like, what are your limitations? Like he bought a picnic table, wooden picnic table, and he sawed it apart with little plastic knives. And he had to spend $60 on these knives. It took a long time, but he did it. And then he started, doing things like he went to all of the Walmarts within 100 miles of him to buy a Snickers bar and to record. I mean, just silly stuff.
Right.
But people were fascinated by it. Well, he started making so much money, hundreds of millions of dollars. So he did videos of himself, like tipping a pizza driver $10,000. And this older guy was delivering a pizza and he just broke down in tears. And he just said, "You have no idea what this means to my wife and me." And he would take an Uber or Lyft driver and give them $10,000, or a homeless person, and the joy. And then, he would do silly things like have his friends buy 100 rolls of saran wrap and wrap him up in it. And then he did things where it took 40 hours where he was just counting from 1 to 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just stuff.
Right.
But and he calls himself Mr. Beast. But what happened was he was fearless about what he wanted. And he said, I'm hopeful by, I'm really going to be bummed out in 6 months if I don't have this, if I don't have 15,000 subscribers. Well, hello. And then 12 months and whatever. But what Ben Hardy says is that what happens is when we are clear on our goals, we are actually operating as our future self. We said that our future self, we see ourselves as like pushing toward that goal, whatever it is. Okay. If we are clear on our future self, that future self pulls us into that reality.
Isn't that something?
I think it is. I think it's just, and there are just so many examples of this. And he says being connected to your future self is the proof of being present to your present self.
Okay. Going back to what you said about the how is none of our business.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember when we do our retreats and I teach that song, I get unexpected income all the time? That's all about that. That's all about, don't worry about how. It's unexpected, but expect the unexpected. And then we are grateful for the income all the time. And I would sing that every day in the shower. And so for everybody who's listening now for the first time, if you sing that song, what happened is I needed $10,000 to free myself from this horrible credit card debt. Capital One had decided to take my interest up to 34% because I was trying to pay online when it first happened. And I didn't press this little button that said confirm. And I thought it was paid. And that $10,000 showed up. It was specific and it was exactly what I needed. So when you think about somebody going to the top of a mountain, they keep their eye on that top of the mountain. A lot of times our future self, we don't see the tangible, something tangible. We say, well, we want this or we want that. But for instance, they say, if you want to be prosperous, go to a car dealer of the car that you want and go sit in it and imagine yourself driving it. And then we
take a test drive in it.
The smell, everything, go home and relive that just as it will be. And because also, if you think of it in these terms, which is this is an interesting, it's pretty deep, but when Einstein said that there's no such thing as time, then you know that that future self is already happening in another timeline.
Yeah, it is.
And so you say, no, I want it in this one now. And that's all you do. That's how I wrote my book, Ruby. I sat down, I had a necklace and a journal and a girl named Ruby, and that's really all I had. And I decided this book's already written. And I would get in a zone with that understanding and say, now what happens? And that's how I wrote that book, Ruby. And I've had a lot of people say it's the best, one of the best books they've ever read, because it was already written. I just allowed it to come into this reality. And I know that sounds far-fetched. It's what we don't understand in our 3D world. We don't understand that type of thing. So pretend it's real.
It is, yeah.
Don't try to figure out the logic. Just pretend.
Well, it's like my son was learning how to ice skate in Dallas over at the Galleria.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was little, and his instructor, she said, you know, just pretend that you know how to ice skate. Just put one foot in front of the other and just pretend. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
He learned how to ice skate. What Ben Hardy was saying too is he was writing this book. He's 32 years old. He has 6 children. He has a beautiful wife. And he said, you know, he came in and he's got these teenagers, and then he's got middle children, and then he's got his little 3-year-old. And he said, you know, just he stopped a couple of blocks away from home, just like going, you know, and he said, how do I become my future self now? And he said, okay, let's just move forward 20 years. In 20 years, I'll be 52. And all of my kids are going to be in their, you know, 20s and 30s. And what would I give to be able to walk in the door and spend time with the 3-year-old and the 5-year-old and the 14 and 15-year-old that are good naturedly, you know, kind of picking at each other and stuff like that. And he said, I'm taking that on. And he walked in and pulled up in his little 3-year-old, and he has a picture of her, him and her, a little selfie. And he said, she ran, Daddy, Daddy. And he was like, hey, do you want to run around the yard? He was like, well, yeah. And so they ran around the yard, and then they came in, and he said, normally this stuff would just irritate him because he's tired. He's had a big day. And he just said, I'm just going to soak this up because my future self would give anything to have this time. And this is my time. And so that's another way of looking at it.
My dad does that. My dad does that all the time. He says, if I could just have all 4 of you be that age again, that like, you know, when Kurt was like 6 and I was 12. And he always says that. He goes, if I could just snap my fingers and do that. And that's called appreciation of the now.
Yes.
Ye now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he says also to look at our actions. If we know what our future self, what we want our future self to be, then we can start examining what we are doing on a daily basis or what we're not doing on a daily basis and saying, would my future self approve of this? What advice would my future self give me around this subject? Do more of this. Don't do as much as this. And where is this particular activity right now taking me? Now, these are big questions, but they're not hard questions. You just have to think about it, you know. And it's like, I mean, I can think about like in college and stuff, and gee, you know, I should have probably gotten a lot more sleep or, you know, whatever. I mean, it didn't kill me.
What were you doing?
Obviously, I don't know what the hell I was doing, but, you know, I mean, I did okay. But, you know, here's the other thing too, Cindy. I had no idea what I was going to be or what I wanted to do at all. None. And nobody ever actually asked me, you know, what it is. And so I was just kind of following this course. And I was studying elementary education because, you know, I like to teach and stuff. Well, as soon as I got into student teaching, I realized I hate kids. I mean, I don't hate them, but I don't want to spend all my time with
Oh,
kids.
that, and
Okay.
let's
Because
look
I
at
had to rear
it,
my brothers and sisters.
let's look at it as energy. Okay. A bunch of children.
But it woke me up and it said, well, what is it that I do like? I love teaching, which of course took me into my professions of life coaching and being a unity minister. You and I forming Bnow, because we bring the most exciting women in to share their knowledge, and we learn from them and we teach, and it's so much fun. And because you and I together were like, yeah, it's got to be fun or we don't want to do it, right?
Yeah. We don't have time for not having fun.
That's exactly right.
We don't have that time.
So I love this. And he said, even, in the Bible, he said it talks about faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So what is it that you want? And I would ask people, what do you want? And some people would say, I have no idea. So here's a good place to start. What don't you want?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't want to be this and I don't want to be that. And I don't want to be in a dead end job or, whatever it is. Okay. Now let's just take the antithesis of that. And if you are not this, and if you are not poor and sick and unhappy or, whatever, or working in a job that you hate, what is the opposite of that? And that's a great place to start.
Right. It is. It is. So everybody, in conclusion, you can be whatever you want to be. Just be specific so that universe understands what that is, and get out of the way and watch the miracles happen. It's happened to me. It's happened to you. And I love these stories, and I love coffee with you.
I love coffee with you too.
Thank you, Jeannie. Bye, everybody. See you next Monday.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Mwah.